Hi there, it's Lara here again with your weekly Witchy Wednesday astrology forecast for the week of May 1st to 7th, 2019. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Happy May Day. Happy Beltane if you celebrate any of that. May 1st, which is the day that this video comes out. I'm actually recording a day early because we are off to New Orleans for Jazz Fest for just shy of a week. So looking forward to that. And I'm recording this early. And I just wanted to let you know that if you have messaged me recently and I haven't gotten back to you yet, messaged or emailed me, I promise. Apologies, just lots going on and trying to get things done and get ready for our trip. So I will get back to you and in the very near future. And if you're interested in a reading, then you can still do that. You can still order. I'll be right back to it as soon as I get back home next week. So, and if you have questions for me or what have you, then send them along. I'll definitely get to them. Okay. So thank you. And the link is below if you're interested in taking a look at the readings. Oh, and on that note, actually, there's just something that I wanted to share with you because it made me quite happy, and I wanted to give you an indication of the kind of impact that a reading can have on somebody. Not only, so I read astrology, I also read tarot. Lots of people opt for a combination of both, and I'm happy to do that. And I had a repeat client, somebody I've read for a few times before, who had another reading, and sent me a message just saying, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but said that I feel like your readings are more helpful than therapy, than my therapy. So not that it's a replacement for therapy if that's something that you need. I've shared with you before, been there, done that, still do it because I think it's really important to deal with your stuff and to hit things from all possible angles. But I just wanted to share that with you because it really made me happy, and it gives you some idea of just how impactful, having this kind of information can be. So May Day, let's get back to that for a second. May Day or Beltane, right? Just briefly, is May 1st. It is it's another Celtic fire festival, pagan witches holiday. And it's a celebration of really the fertility of nature. And it takes place when nature is at her most fertile, right? And it is named after the Celtic fire god Bel. And it's no wonder that it takes place during Taurus season, because Taurus is very much connected to nature, to the world of the five senses, and so no coincidence there. So if you celebrate that, then happy Beltane, happy May Day. If you're interested in doing some kind of little ritual or celebration, it usually would involve fire, a bonfire, or even lighting candles or whatever. A nod to fire in some way, and connecting with nature. And you can Google, all over the internet, you'll find more information. So, but I just wanted to mention that to you. So yes, we are in Taurus season, and we're going to talk in this video mostly about the new moon in Taurus. That's going to be our focus, which is happening on May 4th. And before I get there, I will mention to you where the moon is, which is in Aries today as you're listening to this video, the fiery sign of Aries, and then moving into Taurus on Friday, and we'll have that new moon when the moon is in Taurus, and then it will move into Gemini on Sunday. And as I spoke about in last week's video, Pluto and Saturn are now retrograde, right? So Saturn went retrograde yesterday. And when a planet stations retrograde, you tend to really feel it. So we were all feeling some heaviness around here yesterday. I don't know about you, but And when I say yesterday, I actually mean Monday because I'm recording this on Tuesday. But so those planets are both retrograde now. And if you want more info about what that means, go back and listen to last week's video because I speak about it there. This Saturn Pluto South Node conjunction in Capricorn, that you hear me talk about all the time. You probably hear other astrologers talk about it, and you'll hear us all continue to talk about it for the next while, at least, because it's a big deal. But it is making actually a nice conversation and lending some support to this new moon that's happening in Taurus. So we'll talk about that as well. The other thing I want to mention before we dive into the details of the new moon is that Mercury, right, planet of our thinking, our communications, our ideas, all of that, the messenger god, right? Think about the exchange of information that goes on. And also our internal thought processes. I always like to mention that because sometimes people forget that that's part of communication, how we communicate with ourselves. It's a big part of it as well. So Mercury enters Taurus on Monday the 6th, and it will be in Taurus until the 21st. And so when Mercury enters Taurus, our thinking and our communications, they slow down a bit, which is a welcome change, I think, for most of us, right? They become more sort of practical and common sense and more simple. And when I say simple, I mean, what I mean by that is like we're less apt to multitask or have our thoughts all over the place. It's kind of focusing on one thing at a time, right? That's very much Taurus. And we'll just like our thinking just tends to be more grounded. But the shadow side of this, so something to be mindful of, right, is being sort of too rigid or too stuck in your thinking, right? Same old thought patterns and thinking and the way you communicate. And so it's good to just be mindful of that and not get too stuck in kind of thing, right? Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So very solid, set in its ways, that kind of thing, right? Grounded. So, okay, so that's Mercury in Taurus. And let's get on to talking about the new moon in Taurus that's happening on Saturday, May 4th at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can adjust accordingly, at 14 degrees of Taurus. So at the same time here, we've got, as this new moon is happening, one thing I'll mention is Mars, which is now what we call out of bounds, meaning he's kind of going rogue a little bit, going further than like out of orbit than is the norm, right? And so this can have that bit of a, like I said, rogue quality kind of with the Mars energy. And Mars is in Gemini, and it is opposite Jupiter, that's retrograde in Sagittarius, right? At the time of this new moon. And so this can give us a real boost of confidence to kind of go for it. And the one thing we have to be mindful of is of being sort of overconfident or too risky, perhaps, or too self-involved, too selfish about our actions. So that's one thing that we just want to be mindful of. But new moons are always, they mark a fresh start, right? They mark a new beginning. They mark the sun and the moon coming together. So that yin and yang energy coming together to birth something new, right? And we have fresh starts and new perspectives and those kinds of things associated with new moons. I think what I'll do is I'm going to show you the chart now, and then I'll carry on talking about the new moon. So here you go. Here's the chart for the new moon in Taurus on Saturday. So that's what I drew this chart up for. So you're going to see here are the sun and the moon, right? Right together there in the sign of Taurus at 14 degrees. We've also got Uranus in Taurus, right? For the next like 7 years here. And we've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it again. And I have a separate video on my channel about that specifically if you haven't heard it yet. And there's this Mars I was talking about down in Gemini, opposite, right? Whoops, opposite Jupiter in Sagittarius, Jupiter retrograde in Sag. See that red line? That's the opposition, right? Oppositions require some balance. There's a bit of tension there, trying to balance those energies, but they're also quite dynamic. And then, of course, here we've got all the stuff in Capricorn, right? So Pluto, Saturn, and the South Node there, right beside each other in Capricorn. And we've got this collection of planetary energy is, you see these blue lines, making a sextile, I'm sorry, a trine, not a sextile, a trine to the new moon. And that is quite a supportive aspect. It's a conversation of ease and flow. And then we also have Neptune over here in Pisces, which factors into this new moon. Neptune is sextiling, right? 60 degrees away from all this energy in Capricorn, and also sextiling the new moon. So this is also a supportive, sort of stabilizing force here. Neptune is really kind of protecting the whole thing, right? And so I wanted to point that out to you. So those are the main things we're going to focus on here when we're talking about the new moon. Okay. So the new moon in Taurus. Overall, this has to do with our connection to the material world, the world of the five senses, nature. It has to do with the connection to our resources, our resourcefulness, our sense of stability, how we are nourished in this life. And it has to do with worth and values. So what are our core values? What do we value? What do we deem really essential for our survival? And that doesn't always have to do with material resources, although, if you don't have those basics met, then it's hard to really value anything else, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Taurus has to do with, so our values, resources, stability, and our self-worth, which is intimately connected to all of those other themes, right? Like if we're not able to provide for ourselves and our loved ones, that it impacts our self-worth, right? If we don't have our needs met, it impacts our self-worth. If we are not being adequately or fairly compensated for our skills and talents, it impacts our self-worth. If we don't have a safe place to land, it impacts our self-worth. If we have been if we've had to face some hardships in some way, it impacts our self-worth. You can see where I'm going with this, right? So self-worth is intimately connected with all of these other things. And the values that we hold near and dear, those core values, are ultimately connected to our self-worth as well. Because, for example, if you value power and control, and which is the opposite, right? It's sort of the shadow side of Scorpio, which is the opposite sign of Taurus. And you kind of do whatever it takes to get power and control and get your needs met, and dominating other people and this kind of thing. And you've seen nothing wrong with that. If that's something that you value, then although it may not appear so on the outside, that is an indicator of somebody with very low self-worth. So you see how those things are connected, right? So that's kind of, what this new moon is ultimately about. It also has to do with, I mentioned, our connection with nature, obviously, and the simple comforts. And it's a really good time to connect with Mother Earth, to connect with the earthly pleasures, gardening, having a nice meal, just enjoying the simple pleasures in life. It's a really good time to do that. There's also a connection to our physicality. So being tuned in to our physical bodies and, our health ultimately, and nurturing and nourishing ourselves, our bodies, nourishing our bodies, nourishing our whole selves. But ultimately, Taurus as an earth sign is very connected to the physical realm, the physical material realm. And individually for each of us, this new moon will bring this Taurian energy to whatever house it sits in our chart, right? And we're going to get to that in a minute. So as I showed you on the chart, the new moon is also sextiling Neptune in Pisces, and it's trining Saturn and the South Node and Pluto there up in Capricorn, right? So this is kind of suggesting that we have an opportunity for us to ground our dreams into reality, right? Neptune is about the dreams, the inspiration. It's also about our connection to our spirituality. There can be like a very spiritual connection to nature that happens around this time. But and the grounding piece comes from the Taurus new moon, and also, that energy in Capricorn, which is supporting this new moon, because Capricorn is also an earth sign. And so there's some powerful earth energy going on there, and Neptune's lending support here. So Neptune is allowing us on some level, like this whole conversation is allowing us to ground our dreams in reality. We have an opportunity here to manifest something for ourselves, right, in the real world. And this new moon, I thought I would mention here too. Again, I'm not an expert by any stretch on the fixed stars. It's just something that sometimes is interesting to me. But this new moon is, if you remember, there was a new moon in Aries. That was the last new moon we had, and I mentioned to you in the video that it was happening in the constellation of Andromeda, and I went further into the story of Andromeda. And Andromeda is this constellation that looked to the ancients like a woman shackled, right? And there's a whole mythology around this. And eventually she was released, and she was shackled there through no fault of her own. She was actually kind of paying for the actions and the behaviors of her parents and her ancestors, kind of thing. So there's that ancestral karma piece. But anyway, so that new moon in Aries happened in Andromeda, and it happened on the fixed star that's the head of Andromeda, right? So this new moon in Taurus is also happening, on top of the constellation Andromeda, but this time happening on the fixed star that is in the feet of Andromeda. So, which is called Almach, yeah. And so this is kind of like, giving us another opportunity to break those chains, right? And this time, like the imagery suggests, we're breaking the shackles. We broke the shackles. The Aries new moon perhaps helped us break those shackles of, like, the mind shackles, in a sense, where our thoughts maybe, we let go of some thought patterns and some old ways of thinking and that kind of thing. that were not serving us, and just things that we've had so fixed in our psyches that it was difficult to let go of. And now, now it's kind of like taking that next step, literally, because it's at the feet, right? Where we can actually start to move forward, right? So we're breaking those shackles in the sense that we're working on the physical plane now. So it's like we can actually take the physical actions. But with Taurus, that's not like running off in all directions, and that's not full speed ahead. With Taurus, that's step by step, grounded, practical, one thing at a time approach. It's actually slowing down. Taurus wants us to slow down, take time to smell the roses, and enjoy earthly pleasures and realize the abundance that is right there in front of us. The simple abundance of nature that's all around us. And one more thing to mention before we get into each of the signs is that Venus, right, is ruling the new moon, because Venus rules Taurus. And Venus will be in Aries at the time of the new moon. So this kind of just reinforces to me that whole message of going after our desires, but in a practical Taurian approach, right? Making our dreams a reality, manifesting something, breaking free from the shackles. That's also the Pluto South Node Saturn piece up there in Capricorn too, right? Breaking free from the past in some way, and allowing more abundance in, more shifting our perspective about what our worth is, and how much we're worth, and perhaps shifting our value system, our connection to our resources, our connection to nature, our connection to our physical body, all of those things. So I think a good kind of practice to do around this new moon, and the best time, just so you know, the best time to do kind of a new moon ritual is a little bit after the new moon. Not necessarily like before it is not a good time, because the moon is in her dark phase at that point, right? So, a day, 2, 3 days kind of after is a good time to make a fresh start. We can kind of start thinking about it and that sort of thing, but to actually do any actions, it's a good time to wait until a couple days after the actual new moon. So I think it's a good time to ask, what do I value? It's a really good time to sit with ourselves and think about that. What do I value? What is worth my time, my money, my resources, my investment, my attention, all of those things? And what do I feel like? Am I being fairly compensated for my time and the resources that I'm putting out, right? What helps me feel grounded? How can I connect to earthy energy? And how can I connect to the rhythms of nature, the predictable rhythms of nature, right? Is very Taurus. How can I further release blockages, old patterns, let go of ancestral karma, outworn modes of relating to my resources, and my sense of stability in general in the world? So those are some good things to consider at the time of this new moon. And this new moon will have more of an impact, or be felt more by people that have planets and points at around 10 to 18 degrees of the fixed signs, most notably Taurus, but also Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. All of us will feel it in some way, shape, or form, particularly surrounding the specific life themes that the house that it falls in deals with, and I'm getting to that in a second. But those fixed signs will be most impacted. So the new moon in Taurus through the houses. Just going to take a sip of water. Excuse me, before we launch in here. So we're going to start with Taurus, right? Because Taurus, this is your new moon and it's happening in your sign, which is the first house. So we're talking about Taurus ascendant when we say it's in the first house, right? Taurus ascendant or Taurus rising. But you can also listen for your sun sign if you have a sun sign Taurus or a moon sign Taurus. And this will also give you good information. So Taurus, first house, new moon. This is about a fresh start and manifesting something and connecting to your worth and what you value in terms of yourself, your your physical body and your instinctual approach to the world and how you are perceived by others as well, right? The first house, the ascendant, how we are perceived. It's this first house also speaks to how we go about getting our needs met. And so something may be changing there, or you may be manifesting something in that regard. How you go about getting your needs met may change, and that's on offer for you anyhow. So it's good for you to consider in relation to these first house themes, some of those questions that I posed just before I started speaking to each sign. So that's for you, Taurus, and happy birthday, if your birthday's coming up, or if you've recently had a birthday, Taurus, and happy new moon. All right, moving on to Aries. Aries, this new moon is happening in your second house, which is actually the natural home of Taurus. And so this speaks to your resources, your connection with your resources, your values, your self-worth, your sense of stability in the world, and how you're compensated for the time and energy you put out there and your skills and talents, those kinds of things. So you've got some, sort of like a double hit of Taurus going on here, which is great. And it's kind of time. I know sometimes Aries can have difficult time kind of like slowing down, taking a step back. Let's reevaluate. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's be practical and grounded in our approach, because they just kind of want to go for it. And while it is a time to go for it in many ways, we need to be a little more, slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, a little less multitasking, a little more one thing at a time. And so you have the opportunity, Aries, to shift things here, to maybe let go of some old patterns and beliefs around your resources and your self-worth and that sort of thing as well. So keep in mind those questions that I posed just before I started speaking to each sign. Okay, so that's you, Aries, and we're moving on to Pisces now. Pisces, this new moon in Taurus is happening in your third house. So Pisces, this new moon is bringing more grounding, more simple abundance, more stability to your third house of communications and your thoughts, your ideas, your connection to your immediate environment, like your siblings and your cousins and your neighbors and your peers and the people in your general day-to-day life. And so this can also have to do with, like a writing project or something involving learning, usually more like early learning kind of thing. So there is some grounding happening. Your ability to manifest something in this area is increased with this new moon. So perhaps, a writing project, that I mentioned, that could be one example. But just bringing this grounded sense of stability and one foot in front of the other and simple abundance and nourishing, nurturing quality to the third house for you. And also because of this supportive conversation happening between Neptune and also the Saturn Pluto South Node conjunction, we're being offered a chance or some support to kind of let go of past shackles, things that have been shackling us to outmoded ways of being in this third house. And, the Neptune piece is lending some, it's your ruler, Pisces, so lending you some real dreamy support, but support, that's grounded in reality as well. So, making your dreams a reality, like I spoke about earlier. So that's for you, Pisces. Aquarius, this new moon in Taurus is happening in your fourth house. And so for you, this has to do with your home, your family, your sense of, like the fourth house is at the bottom of our chart. So it's kind of like this solid like it's the foundation, right? Whether or not it's solid depends on different things, but so it's your literal place of living. It is your roots, your ancestry, your home, your family, your connection to the mother or mother figures, nurturing, and your emotional security, your sense of emotional security also. And so with the Taurus new moon happening there, you have an opportunity to get really grounded here and to maybe feel some solid support from your close family members or the people that you consider, your tribe. And you may have the chance, for example, to manifest some kind of different living arrangement, new place to live, or some kind of, just manifesting something on the material realm that literally has to do with your place of living, whether it's just, some new furniture or something, something really beautiful for your home, perhaps. It can have to do with your sense of self-worth in relation to your family. Maybe you're working on releasing some baggage, right? Some ancestral baggage, messages from your family of origin that hampered your self-worth or your ideas about, what was expected in terms of what you valued and your resources and all of that. And so there can be a chance here to kind of let go of some of that old karma and to manifest something new and to take it in your own direction and be supported in doing that, right? And it's a really nice time even to just kind of enjoy the earthly pleasures on the home front. So, staying in at home and, cooking a really nice meal and having some close friends or family over, for example, enjoying some nice food, that sort of thing. Okay, moving on to Capricorn. Capricorn, this new moon in Taurus is happening in your fifth house. And this has to do with your children or like just children in general, right? Any connection you have to children, including your own inner child, would fall here. The fifth house is about the creativity of the individual, right? It's ruled by Leo, at home to the sun. So think of that sun shining its light, right? And so it's your creative self-expression, has to do with children, has to do with, the fun things in life, including romance and whatever sparks joy for you. Could be hobbies, that sort of thing even. And so with the Taurus new moon here, Capricorn, it's a chance to materialize something in this department, to maybe slow things down and spend more time with your kids, for example, enjoying nature. Could be one way this plays out. This could be, feeling grounded in your creativity And maybe there's a creative project that you're going to get off the ground and use that practical Taurian approach of one foot in front of the other, right? Focusing on one thing at a time to create something really solid and stable and long lasting. So those are just some thoughts on the new moon in the fifth house for you, Capricorn. And I'm going to move on to Sagittarius. We are looking at the new moon in the sixth house for you, Sagittarius. And so this has to do with your daily routines, the daily grind kind of thing, how you spend your days, and how you are in service to others, whether that's paid or unpaid. It can be like daily work tasks at your actual job, or it can be at home, or it could be work, if you work from home, or if you're a stay-at-home parent, it can have to do with that. This can have to do with your health and wellness routines as well, and just, that area of health and wellness. And it has to do with like imbalance. And when I say that, I mean like connections between people that we wouldn't consider on a level playing field somehow. So like employers and employees is an easy example to use, just for example. Teachers and students, that would be another example, that sort of thing. And so any or all or some of these areas are impacted in particular by this new moon in Taurus. And so there's a chance here to manifest something in this area of life, through letting go of some old ways of being, some old patterns that we spoke about, and making some practical effort to make your dreams a reality. Like maybe you feel like you work too much on the day to day, right? And so you're trying to rearrange your schedule, so that you can just have less going on in a day, for example. And so you can use this Taurus energy to really be practical, take some practical steps here, and help you out with this. And this is also a chance to consider what it is that you value, right? Like if you're just running around on the day to day like a chicken with your head cut off, is that necessary? Or can you let some of that go, for example? So that would be a good thing to definitely consider at this point. So that's for you, Sagittarius, and we're moving on to Scorpio now. So Scorpio, this new moon is happening in your seventh house, and this is the house of one-to-one relationships, right? And so there is something transpiring over the course of this new moon that has to do with that. So this could be you and a partner looking to, maybe, I don't know, it could be like merge your finances so that overall things are more stable for you. It could be that, you and a partner are looking at maybe some kind of purchase of something in the material realm that can just give you a better sense of grounding and feeling stable and that kind of thing, or that you just enjoy because you enjoy it, because Taurus is about enjoying the world of the five senses. So it could just be, it could be something as simple as you go on a nice, weekend getaway to wine country kind of thing, right? And you're enjoying the, the sensations, the food and drink and the scenery and all of that. That can be very Taurian. That can be one way that this plays out. It could be that, I'm just trying to think of another example that I could give you. it could be because of this connection, we're talking about self-worth here as a Taurian theme, that in relationship, you are potentially realizing your worth, right? In relationship, you're valuing yourself more. Therefore, you are more valued by the other person. And, when we value ourselves, then that's kind of what we attract, right? Whereas when we have this energy of constantly being down on ourselves and not knowing our worth and all of that, then that tends to be what we attract. So there can be this sense of getting grounded in, in really what you bring to the table in relationship. And so that could be happening for you, Scorpio. So these are just some examples. This could play out in so many different ways. That's why it's always important to listen to the intro, because then you can get a sense for your own self of what's happening. Okay, we better move on here because I'm going to run out of time on this camera. Moving to Libra. The new moon is happening in your 8th house, Libra. So this has to do with other people's resources. So resources that you kind of share with others, and that can be like a partner, or it can be taxes, insurance, wills, bursaries, scholarships, windfalls, some kind of inheritance, let's put it that way. That could be too. So those things, it has to do with our deep psyche and what goes on deep down in our psyche, and psychological healing, and our intimate connections with other people. And so you have an opportunity to make some dreams a reality here. Maybe by, I don't know, it could be like getting a loan for a home reno, for example. It could be, somebody getting a scholarship to go off to college. It could be doing some deep psychological healing work that allows you to get a better grip on your own self-worth and maybe let go of some things that were hampering that. So that's just those are just a few examples, Libra, for you. Like I said, to the other signs, please listen to the intro. That will be helpful. Moving on to Virgo. Virgo, this new moon is happening in the 9th house for you. So this is some manifestation in terms of travel, in terms of connection to foreign cultures, in terms of your beliefs and philosophies, and teaching and learning, potentially even publishing, some kind of publishing, thing that's coming into reality, like into material form. A project of some sort, like a book project or something like that, or some course of study that you're embarking on. And so there's an opportunity here to get grounded and practical and do the step-by-step approach to really creating something in this area of life, making something happen, and to letting go of some old baggage in that department as well. Making some kind of dreams a reality, maybe some travel plans or something like that, Virgo. So that's for you, Virgo. We're going to move on to Leo now. And Leo, this new moon is happening in your 10th house of your career and your public reputation and ambitions and status and authority. And so this is a big deal, right? You're manifesting something. You're able to manifest something. You have the support to manifest something in this area of life. And that may require letting go of something in order to embrace the new, right? With a new moon. And this could lead to, more money, more abundance financially, feelings of greater self-worth as well. And, or it could be like a change in title that makes you feel better about yourself even. So that's for you, Leo. And I'm going to move on to Cancer now. Cancer, this is in your 11th house, this new moon, which is about friendships and groups and your hopes and dreams for the future and those people in the group that can help you manifest that as well. And so, Cancer, this may be a time of materializing a new friendship circle, or your friends and some kind of group associations, and this can even be, internet groups or whatever, helping you feel a greater sense of grounding and helping you see your worth. And there can be some, evaluating your values in this department. What do you value in your friendships? That kind of thing. So that would be some things to consider for you, Cancer, but make sure you listen to the intro, okay? And then last but not least, Gemini. Gemini, this new moon in Taurus is happening in your 12th house, which is more the house of the unseen, the unconscious, the things that go on behind closed doors, how we spend time in solitude, our connection to the unseen and the spiritual realm. And so there is something changing here and something materializing on this front. And, you're letting go perhaps of some, it's like the conscious behaviors and the unconscious behaviors are suddenly working together to help you manifest something and change something and let go of some maybe unconscious blockages in your life and bring you a greater sense of stability and grounding, and sort of even like sort of down to earthness, and if that makes sense to you. So I'm going to leave that there, and please listen to the intro as well. And I do appreciate you being here. And if you want to see some pics of our trip to New Orleans, then make sure you follow on Facebook and Instagram as well. The links to that will be below, okay? Take good care. Have a beautiful new moon in